First things first, there has never been, nor will there ever be, another pickup truck this good looking. Second, this good looking truck ripped off a 0 to 60 run so quick that it took 30 years for another pickup truck to catch it. That is, by the way, twice as long as the McLaren F1 held the top speed record. And third, it has the one thing that in 1991 meant performance more than anything else: an air dam with integrated fog lights. Let me tell you, those fog lights meant business. The first Syclone tested did 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. This tied the then brand new, outrageously fast quad-cam 32-valve Corvette ZR1, ranking among the quickest cars ever tested. Oh, except that was in the rain. In the dry, this thing hit 60 in 4.3 seconds. Goodbye ZR1, hell, goodbye Lamborghini Diablo. This pickup truck was only 1/10 of a second behind the Ferrari effing F40. Insanity, you may be saying, and you'd be right. As with so many amazing cars, the idea for the Syclone came from someone like us, a lunatic. Enter Kim Nielsen, GM employee, muscle car fan, and drag racer who worked his way through 7 1986 and 87 Buick Grand Nationals. As the Buick was dying off, he realized that GM had nothing interesting in its portfolio other than the Corvette, and thought it would be a huge win for GMC's image if it put the Grand National's turbocharged V6 in its compact truck. It was called Syclone, with an S because Mercury had used the correct spelling years earlier. It was white with white wheels and pink graphics, and it didn't actually run, but was pushed onto the stage of the 1989 Chicago Auto Show with press materials promising 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds and 13s in the quarter. GMC's press release said they had no plans to build it. Oh, please. That's just how car companies get people to light their torches and sharpen their pitchforks. It worked, obviously, or I wouldn't be here. Unfortunately, Buick refused to make any more of the Grand National's Turbo 3.8s thanks to warranty costs for blown head gaskets, turbos, and oil leaks. Early turbos, don't you know? But the top spec motor in the S-15 pickup was also a V6, and a turbo could work on that one too. Remember this about GM at the time. The divisions were all under one umbrella, and they often sold rebadged versions of the same car, but their engines were often very different. The Chevy 4.3 and the Buick 3.8 are completely unrelated. The Grand National's V6 descended directly from the 1961 Buick 215, the all-aluminum V8 that eventually became the Range Rover V8. With 2 cylinders lopped off and made out of cast iron, it was the basis for the Buick 3.8-liter V6. On the other hand, the 4.3-liter started out as a Chevy 350 small block, the engine that was in the Corvette, so its 4-speed automatic bolted right up. And that sounds like the perfect recipe for a muscle truck. But Chevy wasn't interested. GMC was, so Nielsen took the job as its compact truck product planner and made a formal pitch for the project. GM's work group said developing a turbo truck with 4-wheel anti-lock brakes would take 7 years and $200 million. Nope, that would never work. First, the trucks were already nearing their end of production. Second, divide $200 million by a couple thousand units, and you wind up with a pickup truck that would cost more than the supercars it was supposed to race against. Unfortunately for GM's work group bean counters, Nielsen had originally been hired to help GM find ways to shorten the amount of time between idea and execution. Forget 7 years and $200 million. He did it in a year and a half, and for $14 million. And it meant hiring outside companies to circumvent GM's slowpoke paper pushers. Nielsen pitted 2 engineering consultant companies against each other to build a prototype 4.3-liter muscle truck. One was ASC McLaren, which had been working with Pontiac on the Turbo Grand Prix and the Grand National GNX. The other, Production Automotive Services, or PAS, which had been building the Firebird Turbo Trans Am 20th anniversary, which used a modified GNX engine. McLaren bolted a turbo to a 4.3-liter S-15 pickup, creating a rear-wheel drive burnout monster. But Pass went way further. They did the same turbo 4.3 trick, but then installed the all-wheel drive system from a Chevy Astrovan and the gauge cluster from a Pontiac Sunbird Turbo because it had a boost gauge. And then their little red prototype pickup truck got stolen in the middle of the night from the parking lot of an adult video theater in Detroit. Luckily, that was after it had already convinced Nielsen that all-wheel drive was the way to go. He drove both trucks at the track and, of course, on Woodward Avenue to the dismay of guys in Mustangs and Corvettes, and the Pass truck proved quicker at low speeds and far easier to control. Thus, Pass won the contract to do the truck's development work, emissions and durability testing, and then to ultimately build it. With help from some GM insiders, including the 4.3's chief engineer, it got low compression pistons and some upgraded internals. And then Pass slapped on an intercooled turbo with its wastegate set at 14 psi. Power jumped from 160 horsepower to 280, and by the way, 350 pound-feet of torque, all of which was sent to the Astrovan's all-wheel drive system with its center viscous coupling set to send a minimum of 65% of its power to the rear wheels, where it was met with a limited slip differential. This is some pretty epic stuff, and if this is all meaningless to you, let me translate. Holy shit! A high stall speed torque converter was installed to maximize the launch, and the Syclone hit 30 miles an hour in 1.4 seconds. That was not only a record at the time, but that's about as fast as today's 707 horsepower Ram TRX. Okay, so that was the pre-production truck. The production Syclone that Car and Driver tested was a little bit slower. Actually, it was a lot slower, a full second to 60 and almost 6 seconds to 100 miles an hour. So what happened, you might ask? Well, I don't know. So I just picked up the phone and called the guy who made the thing.
Hi, Jason.
Turns out the original Car and Driver test truck wasn't a cheater. It was just a healthy Syclone on a good day. But they did ice down the intercoolers before the run down Michigan's Milan drag strip, a common practice in the real world, if not really during instrumented testing. And Kim did the launch himself. He's a 150-pound lightweight and, remember, a drag race junkie. And so he's the one who managed the 12.98-second run. Car and Driver's second truck was tested on the West Coast, where you can only get 91 octane gas. The Syclone required 93. And there was likely something wrong with that truck, because no matter what, it's way slower than anything anyone else tested. But here's the thing, didn't matter, because even the slowest Syclone was still supercar fast. The famous story was, of course, that it beat the brand new Ferrari 348 TS to 60 miles an hour, and then through the quarter mile. But even more impressive was that it outbraked the Ferrari with drums in the back. It was, after all, the world's first pickup truck with four-wheel anti-lock brakes. So it did it once and then the brakes caught on fire, but whatever, it takes once. Once is enough. And while it couldn't match the Italian car's skid pad grip, it was deemed to be more agile than the Ferrari. Turns out, if you slam a pickup truck to the ground and put big wheels and sticky rubber on it, it can actually stop and turn. It couldn't, however, hit its own red line. The tachometer went red at 5,200 with a little yellow zone at 4,800, and the Syclone couldn't hit either. It was electronically limited to all of 4,700 RPM. Oh, push rods. And it's safe to say its power delivery was diesel-like, or more accurately, Bentley 6 3/4 liter V8. You floor it, and it's nothing, holy shift. And again. And again and again and again. The interior was all black and red, but since it was a standard cab, there was no room behind you for anything more than an umbrella. The seats can be used to check your blood pressure, just kidding, that's how you adjust lumbar support, and the shifter, like the transmission it commanded, came straight out of the Corvette. Cool detail, according to the government, this is not a GMC. It is, and I quote, a 1991 Pass Inc. Pass-Syclone. And it says it right here. Well, doesn't say the whole thing right there, but you get my point. The bed was sized like any other non-Pass GMC Sonoma, but thanks to the dumped suspension, it couldn't carry much. The Syclone could haul ass, but only if that ass weighed less than 500 pounds. The lack of an official tow rating actually cost the GMC Syclone Motor Trend Truck of the Year. Back then, it was rumored within the industry that a well-timed check could maybe influence the outcome of a comparison test. And so the lore goes that the staff actually chose the Syclone to be Truck of the Year, but then a fat check showed up. What they had to do then is blame the vehicle's lack of towing capacity for the second place finish, to which GMC replied, "Who says the Syclone can't tow?" There was, however, a legitimate problem with the Syclone. It cost $25,970. This was a hell of a bargain given its performance, but for about a third less money, you could buy a 454 SS, Chevy's other muscle truck. With a 7.4-liter V8, a full-size body, and a half-ton payload, it was far more usable than the Syclone. And though it wasn't nearly as quick, it still had fog lights. And so the Syclone was a hard sell. GMC built just under 3,000 of them in the Syclone's one and only year of production, at the end of which many of them sat unsold in showrooms. Then a year later came the Typhoon. This was a GMC Jimmy, the SUV version of the Sonoma pickup, with the Syclone's engine and driveline. Almost 4,700 Typhoons were produced. No surprise it did better since it had space for 4 people and, thanks to self-leveling rear suspension, 900 pounds of cargo. The Typhoon was almost as quick and almost as good looking, and together, the SyTy are 2 of the coolest factory trucks of all time. The Typhoon was the first genuinely fast SUV, and today there are tons of those, but the Syclone stands alone. This is easily the coolest pickup truck of all time, and it starts with those bomb-ass fog lights. Okay, so you're just gonna keep the Ferrari framed out the entire time, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Action.
I'm not some rich YouTuber asking you to like and subscribe. Hey, up, keep the Ferrari out. I'm an automotive journalist asking you to like and subscribe. And that's because that's how YouTube works. If you don't click those buttons, YouTube doesn't know you liked what you've just seen and isn't gonna show you any more of it. And if you don't like what you've just seen, well, join the club. And by that, I mean the Hagerty Drivers Club, which gets you access to this award-winning magazine, as well as discounts on amazing stuff. And if you still don't like what you've seen, well, then just leave a nasty comment, because that's how the internet works. I need to go clean that up.